Are we getting happy?
I'm happy.
Well, you're going to get happier. We're just going to get happier. All right, everybody should have the first cocktail. Looks like a specimen cup there. You should have that in front of you. It doesn't taste like a specimen cup, so no, it should be At this point, we're just going to turn things just a little bit before we have David make his presentation and talk a little bit about the cocktails. We're going to talk about how we embrace the terroir in the drinks. We're going to do it two different ways. The first setup is that we're serving you 3 cocktails that are made with the exact same recipe with 3 different agave-based spirits, so that you can see, if you didn't already know this, that when somebody comes into your bar and calls for your favorite house cocktail or your margarita or your paloma with a different tequila or mezcal than the one that you designed the menu around, that you better be able to think on your feet and adjust that recipe quickly. Because if you think you can taste it neat, how much do you think you're going to taste it in the cocktail? This obvious difference in terroir is magnified when you do it in a cocktail. And we've chosen things that are fairly straightforward so you can really pick them up. But quite frankly, we usually find outside of the margarita, which has driven all of this, thank goodness for all of those people, because without them we would serve no purpose. We find that tequila and mezcal are usually better with very few ingredients and very simple and very allowing the spirit to shine through. So the first set of 3 that you'll receive are 3 with the exact same recipe with 3 different agave-based spirits. So you can see how, even though they're all brilliant spirits here by themselves, they don't necessarily show so well in the drink. Then we'll come back and talk specifically about how we can create a cocktail for the terroir that's in the glass and show you some drinks that were designed specifically for that tequila and or mezcal. Okay? Now I've already introduced one of my dynamic duo over here. The other probably needs no introduction at this point, with all the years he's put in at Tails, having one time done a similar job as the mountain elf in the back, maybe even together at that time, I'm not sure. You've met Misty.
We work together well.
Now let's welcome from Mayahuel in New York City, Mr. Phil Ward. Give it up for Phil. So I'm going to turn this part of the panel over to Phil and Misty to talk a little bit about their 3 cocktails that are coming out right now. You should have number 2 coming now.
Okay, so I really don't want to talk too much because I feel like I'm learning a lot listening to these old fogies. Basically,
Hey, watch out there. If you're lucky, you'll reach our age. If not, you'll be beat after this
I'm closer than you think. I'm closer than you think.
Okay, well, anyways, what we're talking about is terroir. What we're basically talking about is how terroir affects flavor. So now we're going to talk about terroir and spirits and how it affects the cocktail. And I've been thinking a lot about this, and basically what I figured out, or thought I figured out, or want to say, is that terroir is the flavor of a spirit, pretty much what ingredients are to a cocktail. You know, you take soil, you take altitude, you take the hand of the maker, and the hand of the maker is something I want you to latch onto your brain because I want to talk a lot about that today. Because, you know, you have soil, you have climate, you have things like that, but something that's been on my brain a lot today, especially after this morning, is time, technology, and terroir, and the way time and technology have affected terroir. Because if you consider the hand of the maker part of terroir, then I think it's almost the most important part. Like, actually, one of the things that Steve said today, which is very poignant, and also one of the things that Ivan said, which I think really fits into how you think of time, terroir, and hand of the maker, is what Steve said is like where you take what the plant gave you and you use it, or let's say you put the agave into a diffuser raw and shred it and then triple distill it in a column still. Okay, so I think this is very, very important. And also what Ivan said about his definition of evolution was 2 things, was time and the ability to multiply. And I think one of the problems with time is our ability to multiply too quickly, so we lose all the essence and tradition and actually what the spirit actually was. So we're thinking about terroir as the flavor of the spirit, the way ingredients are to the cocktail, And then also we're thinking about, when you're thinking about making cocktails, spirits are the base of that cocktail. And when you're thinking of the spirits, terroir is the base of that spirit. So I think it's sort of like building blocks, you know? So
No doubt, beautiful.
now I think we should turn this over to Missy, and she can kind of try to walk us through this one of the 3 cocktails that we have here, which we're supposed to have 3 of. Jeff?
Well, first of all, I'm going to stand up because I hate sitting down talking to people, because I like to look people in the eyes, and if I sit down there, I can only see like half of you. So my goal and intention here was to create a cocktail in which I could use all the expressions of terroir, Tequila Valley, Highlands, and then of course Mescal as well. Exact same recipe, and maybe and hopefully express all the things that we've been talking about here. And that's probably sounds a lot easier than it actually was, because the spirits are actually extremely different. And there were a lot of drinks that I started with that I thought were delicious, with either Tequila Valley tequila or a Highland tequila, and they really sucked with the other expressions. And that's the whole point here. That's the whole point, is that all of these spirits are so different, and we need to be mindful of what we're doing as mixologists or bartenders, which I like those. I'm a bartender. And so this cocktail is our delicious agave distillate. And do we have all 3 of them? Yeah?
No, 2. The 3rd's coming now.
Okay, so we have in Uno, we have a partida, and just we have Cienfuegos, and then entrees we have the Vida, and the cocktail is, excuse me, the agave distillate, Rothman and Winter Orchard Pear, and Dolman Blanc from within orange bitters. And I was very mindful to leave citrus out of the equation, both as an ingredient and also as a garnish, because I think something that's really important to the spirits that we use is the acidity that we experience. I think any of us who have spent a lot of time tasting spirits and in bars, building the bar behind us, it's that's something that we look for in a quality distillate. And so it's evident in all of these expressions, but in different degrees. And so I wanted to leave citrus out of the equation so that you could taste all of them side by side and see really the difference. There's a certain luxury and like beautiful roundness to what happens in the tequila with the partida cocktail. It's absolutely beautiful. It's round. That acidity goes up a little bit more as we go into the Highlands, and it pops in a different way that I love as well. And then we reach to the smoke later on, and I love this stuff. Can we just drink it?
Okay. Okay. So another thing I want to talk about is, you know, I think if you looked up the dictionary of terroir, you would see a picture of Passiano and Regilio and Faustino and all the other Palenqueros of Del Maguey, because it's amazing that those Palenques, they're, I don't know what the exact differences is, but maybe like 2 hours away, or like 37 kilometers, even though it's windy roads and it takes a long time. And it's amazing when you taste these and how different they taste. Like, if you just think of how different that Monero and the Santo Domingo was, like, those are both just Espadín mezcals through a few degrees difference of proof, and they're totally different spirits. You know, obviously that's an easy example because one is a clay still with bamboo tubing, which, you know, obviously you don't see every day. But I just feel like when you're talking about terroir, I love talking about tequila, or I'm sorry, mezcal, and using mezcal as an example of terroir, because you do have tequilas. Tequilas that obviously, like, we smelled the four blancos, and they all obviously did smell different and taste different and things like that. But I don't always find the differences as vast in tequila. Like, sometimes when I'm at the bar, like, the term that'll slip out of my mouth is I'll say mezcal was tequila with terroir, or I'll say mezcal was tequila on steroids. Like, I just think the differences are more vast and more like to the point. And I think that actually makes sense, though, because I mean, tequila is basically a family of mezcal when you get right down to it, and there's so many different variations of mezcal. And if you're ever blessed enough to go to, like, down to Mexico and a good mezcaleria or something and taste mezcals from so many different agaves, like, I want to throw a shout out here to Pedro Jimenez at Paradise Frere, and if you are ever blessed enough to go there in Guadalajara, I always tell Pedro that Forrest Gump's mom was wrong, because life isn't like a box of chocolates. It's like a mezcal at Paradise Frere, because you never know what you're going to get. And I think if you want to really do, next time we do a seminar on terroir at Tales, we should bring Pedro's bar here and taste all of these different mezcals from different types of agaves from different parts of Mexico, and I think we'd learn even more about terroir.
Okay, so you have a question?
Not a question, but maybe a statement. Or I would love to get rid of this battle between tequila and mezcal. I feel like we are all the same. We're going to be doing the same thing and teaching the same word. I know there are differences, but it would be great. And either we all become part of the mezcal or tequila family. All mezcal food, right?
I'm all for it. We got to get rid of. It's all about the love, Jacques. We got to get rid of the two different regulatory councils and just make it one.
And Jock, last night I drank tequila and mezcal separately together all night, and it tasted like harmony.
Separately together. There you have it, right there. We can all just get along.
Two great tastes.
Two great tastes. I want you to just notice the map right now. This is something that actually David put together that we wanted to show you a little terroir right here. And this also gives me an opportunity to make that final introduction. We'll be back to talk more about the cocktails as the others come out, but in the meantime, what I'd like to do is David, do you want to grab the microphone and maybe talk us through this, but then also, I want to set up your presentation.
Everybody should talk about their own. At Totonilco, we're in Totonilco right now, David.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do you have the other microphone? You want me to use it?
It's a very comfortable one.
It's very comfortable.
At Totonilco.
Shut it off.
The first time I went to Totonilco to meet the families at the Gonzalez family at Siete Leguas, as we dropped into the valley, immediately what it reminded me of was Boulder, Colorado. Who's ever been to Boulder, Colorado? Quite a few people. There's mountains that are surrounding you, and what's really interesting, not all that's grown in those mountains is agave, by the way. I don't know anybody on this panel who knows that they grow a lot of coffee up there. There's amazing coffee that you can get from the hills of Totonilco. So,
marijuana.
Well, we're keeping this legal, okay? But anyway, I just fell in love with everything. But it's a beautiful town, 35,000 people. A lot of pretty major distilleries are there, and then there's some small distilleries there, such as the Siete Leguas. But anyway, I guess that's an aerial view of